And it looks like we are. Yeah, looks like we're live. All right, let's press some buttons, shall we? Okay, and now let's press the other button. And here we go off to the races. Oh, man. How are you guys? How you doing? I hope you're doing well. I hope your weekend was good and your Monday was tolerable. And I'm so glad you can be here to join me tonight for what, in theory, can be a really super helpful, super educational, super interesting discussion. For the next 2 hours or so, I'm just going to give you every single marketing tool I know when it comes to how to sell a book and how to talk about your book and how to write about your book so that other people want to buy it. I'm going to just give away everything because there's so much to talk about. I might as well give you the basics and beyond now so that down the road we can talk about more complicated stuff. And frankly, this is a topic that I've been kind of dying to do for a while because I enjoy talking about this stuff. And one of the things I really like about this, in particular pitching and blurbing and writing, is that so many people seem to be really, really opposed to it. Like, people hate this. They just say all different kinds of things like, oh, I'm not any good at marketing, or I don't like marketing, or I suck at it, or it's real hard, and it doesn't have to be. It really, genuinely, and truly doesn't have to be. What really matters, the whole big trick to it, right? The whole big sort of point that I'm going to be making again and again for the next 2 hours in your ears is that marketing comes down to the very simple idea that you're excited about a thing and that you are able to talk about that thing you're excited about in such a way as to make other people excited about it too. You don't have to necessarily make them as excited as you are. You don't necessarily have to make them excited about the exact same things that you're excited about. You just need to make them excited. And you have far more familiarity with these tools, far more skills and opportunities and options with all this stuff than you think, but you tend not to think of this stuff as marketing. You tend not to think of it in terms of being viable for selling a book because you have, or maybe you have, I don't know, but a lot of people certainly have a very preconceived notion of what selling a book is supposed to be like and how it's supposed to be done and what works best and what doesn't, as though it's supposed to be solely based on some kind of algorithm. And I need to be really clear about this right from the jump. It doesn't matter. The algorithm is a thing, and it sucks, and it's a monster, and we should all feed it and I guess praise it and make some kind of, blood oath to it. But by and large, the ideas you use and the tools you use to sell whatever it is you're selling are independent of any algorithm. Like, all these techniques work, whether we're going to talk about selling in person or whether we're going on a river named website or whether we're, putting it on a big giant evil corrupt conglomerate site or whether we're, putting it on our own website or whatever. Algorithms affect the way people see what you're selling, but how you're selling it is not something controlled by an algorithm. You right there, hello, how are you? You are the one in charge of your selling. That's like the big thing. If nothing else, if you want to dip out right this second, know that you are in charge of how you sell a thing, not some system. And two, marketing is just being excited about a thing and helping share that enthusiasm with other people. That's marketing. No automatic demanded expectation that they give you money. No absolute particular one true sales way to do it. You're just sharing enthusiasm. And you're sharing enthusiasm with a combination of information and attention. You package those two things together, you'll sell something. Absolutely. If that's all you take from this and you're good to go, then have a great night, and I'll see you Wednesday for the Writers Chat. But if you want to go past that, if you want to really dive into this, then, well, we've got 2 hours. So let's really jump in and let's really see where these waters go. I want to start our deep dive by doing 2 things. One, I want to invent a book we're going to use as a sample, because I think it's just easier when we're talking about this stuff to think about it in terms of how would we sell this book. Now, I'm holding in my hand a blank notepad, because let's pretend that's the physical book. Oh my God, thank you so much for subscribing. You make me happy. Thank you so much. It really, I always get choked up when these things happen. Thank you so much. It means the world. Thank you. And a Prime sub. Ooh. Get to buy the cats the nice cat food. So I'm holding in my hand this blank little steno pad, right? Just got it out of the drawer in the office. And we're going to pretend that's the physical representation of the book. It's not terribly compelling to think of things in terms of the physical object first, but we're going to get there down the road. So just for now, here's our book. More important is our book's title and author. Yeah, marketing is just being excited about a thing. That's the entire magic of marketing. And I think that's the part of marketing people tend to overlook. They make it like they make it extra complicated. Oh, marketing is about demonstrating intelligence and passion in equal measure such that other people are impressed. And if you really wanted to impress people, like we would be baking cookies on stream, or we would be talking about the best ways to, like, you know, enjoy certain media or the coolest stuff of the last 10 whatevers. And that's fine, but marketing is just about sharing enthusiasm. It doesn't need to be complicated. In fact, it shouldn't be complicated. And when you get the complication out of the way, this becomes a lot more fun, because all of a sudden you get to have fun being excited about stuff. And it's completely 1000% totally okay to be excited about stuff. So I want to invent a book, because it's always easier to sell from an example. And I've made up a book. I've had a long day. I've been working now. This is our, let's see, 15. This is the 15th hour of my workday. I'm a lunatic. But I've invented this book. So tonight, we will be selling Forbidden Clown Love by author Danielle Snuts. And this is a science fiction romance novel about an astronaut who falls in love with space clowns. Because that just amuses me. And let's just, for the sake of argument, say that this book, just so we give it some context, was written by Miss Snuts maybe over the course of a year. And it is, yeah, yep, there we go. There's the joke. Knew somebody would get it. Miss Snuts, she wrote this book over the course of a year, and it is exactly in the sweet spot for a romance novel. So let's say it's about 85,000 words. It's a little on the high side, but she's really strong about it. She's really clear about it. It's got a great cover of, like, a very, you know, it's not necessarily a hetero romance, so we don't need to have 2 very obviously gendered characters on our cover in a tender embrace. We can, space clowns. Hell yeah, space clowns. We're going space clowns. But I don't want to, like, nail us down to a gender binary, because it shouldn't be, because they're space clowns and because there are more people than just in a gender binary. So rather than just have a very heteronormative, like, one busty person and one shiny ab having person, let's just have like a metaphor, right? Like a spaceship blasting into a big flower on the cover. Just something real subtextual. But Forbidden Clown Love is about 85,000 words, let's say. And if you want to make up more details, we can make up more details. Maybe it's got 30 chapters. But for now, Forbidden Clown Love is our sample book. And one other point I want to make while we dive in here, the things I'm going to talk about in terms of how to sell this book, it doesn't matter if this book was a science fiction romance or a fantasy novel or an instruction manual for a blender or a book you found in the lounge pocket of the airplane seat in front of you. I don't know. Do people still airplane anymore? I have no desire to. I don't like it. But, you know, it doesn't matter. The genre does not matter, and it will not impact how we sell a thing, because marketing is about being enthusiastic about a thing, and it doesn't matter how we label the thing other than it gives us a different point of enthusiasm. We can be excited about a romance novel. We can be differently excited about a science fiction novel. But all the same, it can be a role-playing game. But all the same, we're just excited. I flew to Texas and back a few weeks ago. It was not a great experience. Agree. Hard agree. Here, have air horns. Because no, I'm never getting back on a plane. I'll just, if I need to go somewhere long distance, I will either demand comfy seats or just drive. I don't want to be in a metal petri dish tube. Not anymore. No mas. So here's our book, and genre doesn't matter. And if you want to add extra details about this book, when we get to the making up the details part of this book, feel free to chime in and chat, because as long as it's reasonable, we can make this work. So we have this book, and I want to get you thinking about the sort of 3 different concentric circles. They nest inside one another like a bullseye or a dartboard when it comes to constructing how you're going to market this thing. And I don't care if you have a podcast about your book, Danielle Snuts, or if you have a newsletter, or if you have both, or if you have like you're going to guest on some podcasts, or you're going to, run a website, or do whatever you want to do. I want you thinking about these 3 concentric circles where it starts off small and it expands and it expands. Think about ripples in a pond when we toss a rock in, and we're just going to ripple outward from a small central idea to a much broader, almost fractal sort of approach when we get to the upper end of this. But everything starts with the pitch. Now, it's interesting because if you're ever on the social media and you're dealing with authors, they're going to tell you that the pitch is the top of the pyramid. That, oh man, if your pitch is terrible, you are doomed forever to be relegated like a bad football team to the bottom of some terrible league. And that's nonsense. A pitch is just the smallest unit of marketing books, or the smallest unit of marketing and talking about this thing you're excited about. Why is it the smallest unit? Because it's the smallest. It is not necessarily the simplest. It is not necessarily the least effective. It's just the smallest. So, what is a pitch? Now, I'm going to tell you that the easiest thing to do is conceive of a pitch in terms of how you would pitch it on Twitter, because Twitter has this fantastic character count that creates a very definite limit. You can't exceed 280 characters, though back in my day, it was 140. Which made for even stronger hardcore pitches. But whatever, they've loosened things up because they're an evil capitalist alt-right platforming tool. So, some idiots need 280 characters to talk about how bad they want to oppress and kill other people. Cool, whatever makes them happy. So we have 280 characters to talk about, and we're going to make sure we use as many of them as possible if we need to. But you don't feel, and you should not feel, like you need to use all 280. Sometimes we can just get in and get out around 200 and call it a day. It's completely all right to not use the entire space, even if it's available to you. You just don't have to. It's all right, really. I promise. So, how do we form a pitch? If we know it has to be a certain size, what do we need in our pitch? Well, every pitch has, certain building blocks that are going to be more successful than other building blocks. We can prioritize certain things. We can craft a certain feel and a certain atmosphere based on the things we choose. And here, right now, just like I talked about last week, just like I talked about 3 weeks ago, just like I talked about the week prior to that, here is essentially a very straightforward formula for what should go in a pitch. This, by the way, will anger the internet, because I'm about to give away the magic trick that ruins all the little reindeer games and all the hashtag writing community contests, because they're not actually supposed to help you write. Because if the prize of a contest is the chance to do the thing you should be doing anyway without being in the contest, it's not much of a contest. No one seems to mention that part. They're just all happy about having a hashtag. But by and large, if the prize is a chance to do what you're doing anyway, why did you enter the contest? I want to give away the secret. I want to tell you how the sausage gets made. I want to give away the secret sauce. Here's what a pitch needs. You need a character or some singular element to build around, like the name of the book or the name of the podcast or some kind of thing you're talking about, or a person in that thing you're talking about if it's a big-ass deal. You need a thing, a noun, something concrete, something you can point to, a thing. And then you're going to want to talk about and give it some kind of trajectory. Like, it's a thing, great. What are you doing with it? What's the point of it? Where is it going? In what way are you going to start building enthusiasm? What can you say about this thing to take this noun, to take this object, and move it in a certain avenue? So, for example, you might say, Forbidden Clown Love is the story of an astronaut and a clown. That's fine. You're taking a noun, and we're giving it some kind of vector. It's called a sales vector. Now, the thing you choose to develop the enthusiasm for your thing, arguably, it's called a unique selling point, because you're the only person who's going to think of it, because you're the only person trying to sell it right now. Also, it's a unique selling point because nobody else would think about the same arrangement of words as you. And honestly, it's a thing that is specific and unique to the thing you're selling. It's tough to sell a thing without using a unique point at the start, because if we just go with a generic thing, a broad thing, a thing that applies to a lot of people rather than just you, and say, it's a book. Well, I mean, that's true. Forbidden Clown Love, our example, is in fact a book. But if we just call it a book and stop there, there's loads of other books in the world. There's cookbooks and textbooks and manuals and other fiction and everything else. So we don't want to use a non-specific selling point. We want to use a unique selling point or a specific selling point, depending on what side of the Rocky Mountains you learned your marketing in. So we need to think about a unique thing, a thing that is special and specific to the book. But here's the catch, here's the wrinkle. We don't want to pick a thing that is so specific that it limits our enthusiasm for it, because we've got to dial in too much. Here's a bad example. So let's suppose in our book Forbidden Clown Love by Danielle Snuts, we have like a really specific, like we're going to bring up a character, or we made a character in the book, somebody we hated in elementary school. And just for the sake of argument, let's call that kid we hated in elementary school, let's call him, let's call him Cliff. Sure, let's call him Cliff. And, maybe Cliff was a bully. So there's Cliff, and we put him in the book. Now, if we talk about Cliff in our pitch, first of all, we're doing one of two things. First thing, we only have like 280 characters. We're only really thinking really small. The minute I bring something up in your awareness about my book, I'm going to you, the listener, are immediately going to assume that the thing I'm talking about is important because I'm bringing it up. The same way, you ever have like a conversation with somebody and they just sort of ramble like through 10 million things, and it's sort of hard to figure out what the hell they were talking about because they're all over the place? It's because the thing somebody brings up in some kind of communication, you're assuming is important because they brought it up. But if I'm going to bring up something that's so inconsequential and so minor and so trivial, and it doesn't actually go anywhere, it makes the pitch less compelling because it requires you to know far more information than you could. Because if I tell you that Forbidden Clown Love includes this, as a tertiary character, a bully named Cliff, the only way that's going to matter to you is if you went to elementary school with Danielle Snuts, who was bullied by a skinny kid named Cliff, who constantly made fun of the fact that perhaps Danielle Snuts didn't have, Cliff's single mom made more money than your mom did. Good evening. Hello. Thank you for being here. It's wonderful to see you. I was just talking about Forbidden Clown Love and its very tertiary character, Cliff, who's really only in a couple chapters. So here's Cliff, and he's barely a thing in the book. And if I put it in my pitch, all of a sudden it sounds like my pitch is about Cliff. And that's not what I want to do. So my tertiary characters, my specific things that might be interesting to me, I've got to think about the fact that I'm not selling the book to myself. I'm using my enthusiasm for my own book to spread it to other people who don't know as much as I know and don't know the specifics of what I know. So I've got to try and build a bridge to those other people. And if I start with, hey, by the way, this character that's in like 6 lines in my entire 85,000 word book is based on a kid who bullied the author in high school, like it's nice. But you really want to spend time in your pitch when you don't have that much room and space to sit there and talk about how you were bullied in elementary school? I don't really think it works. By the way, Cliff is an alt-right dude now. It's great. It's just great. Big, wonderful, great, big, delightful. Anyway, we don't want to take a thing that's too specific and hard to enthuse other people with and make that a primary element in our pitch. We want to pick a thing that's unique to our book or unique to our understanding of the book and allows us to build on and allows us to attach more stuff to it. This is called a development point. You take your unique selling point. That's the thing you're thinking about your book. And we're going to transform it into a development point because we're going to do something with it. We're not just listing nouns in our book because that doesn't do anything if the reader doesn't have any sort of pre-existing context for it. Like if we're going to talk about Superman, and frankly, we should all talk about Superman more often, but if we're going to talk about Superman and I just go Fortress of Solitude, if you have an idea of who Superman is, you know that noun, you know that idea. The Phantom Zone, you know what to think about. But if I, bring up in Forbidden Clown Love, I bring up blenders, because there's a blender in a kitchen in a scene in chapter 2, it's not going to mean anything to you. So how did we get started? How did we get here? How do we figure this out? What's the magic trick? You're going to have to make a list. Legit, you're going to have to make a list. List. Ideally, write it down so it's a little bit more concrete because these things can get long and can get complicated. So don't just do it verbally. If you don't have a lot, which is fine, sure, verbally might work, but if you're really going to dive deep and you want to build a variety of pitches, or if you're new at this and you want to get better at pitching, more experience, more options, always to your benefit. I also want to note just for like 2 seconds, first of all, hello everybody who came in. It's wonderful to see you all. Thank you for being here. You're all delightful and I love all of you. I do want to point out that I don't know if you can see on the screen, but in theory, on the screen in front of you, down here, in the bottom, I am two subscribers away from 20, and I gave myself like a 2.5 year window to get to 20 subscribers. Because in my head, 20 subscribers, like, oh my God, you've made it, and I'm now 2 people away, and I am ever so thankful, and I'm grateful for this. I love doing this. I know I don't talk to like 1 million people, and I'm certainly not on camera, and I know there's not like a video game going on behind me, but I'm thankful for each and every single one of you who check in and check this out and then check it out on YouTube and share it with all your friends. Please share it with your people. It's super worth it. Also, I take requests. If you want to have me talk about a thing, bring it up sometime. I'd be more than happy to do like 2 hours on a Monday night with it. You just got to bring it up. I feel like I should have mentioned that. So I did. Well, we're making a list, right? We're talking about how to sell this thing. So we need a list of all the stuff that makes you excited about your thing, your book, your podcast, your role-playing game, oh my God, another subscriber. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You gifted subs to people. Oh man. Well, now I have to like update the thing. I don't even know how to do that. This is amazing. You guys are great. I love you all. You owed me. Well, sure. All right. Thank you so much for doing that. That means the world to me. You guys are the best. Look at us. Look at us building a community. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. One day, we will reach lofty like Adam Cole numbers. One day. Just you wait. Just you wait. I want to corner the market on writing advice. Let's take all the fancy people and show them what for, shall we? Oh my God, more people. You guys mean the world to me. You're amazing. I love you all. You guys are just the coolest. All right, on we go. On we march. Let's do this. So we're going to make a list. Write it down on a piece of paper. Put it on your phone, Google Doc, whatever. Doesn't matter. Just make a list. You're going to make a list of all the cool things that you can think of in any order about your thing, about your book. Well, what's your book about? Put that down. Who's in your book? Put that down. What kind of podcast do you have? Put that down. I do think I would make an excellent bebe. Like, I need a cheer. I should get a cheer. And it, I'm at least that. I mean, I don't have the hair. God, I'd kill for that hair. And, he's younger than me. But I'm pretty sure my lower back is in better shape than his. So, you know what? I'll take it. And I'm less afraid of heights than he is. So, I'll take it. But anyway, we want to make a list of all the stuff that we can think of when it comes to our book. Big, little, individual, weird, goofy, awkward, anything. Yeah, even Cliff the Bully goes on this list. Just know that we're not likely to use that in a variety of pitches to a variety of audiences. If you're wondering, well, are there any limits to this? Yes, there actually are a few limits like this. It's pretty straightforward. You want to pick things that you know you can do something with, that you know you can chain together with another thought or another idea. Things that dead end, things that just sort of stop, like the weather or, the breed of dog a secondary character has. While those are nice and they're true because they're in the thing, it's hard to build a pitch around it. So think about options and ideas that have a connectivity with other options and ideas. So generally, you're going to naturally eventually lean and limit yourself towards the big picture stuff. Well, let's see. Forbidden Clown Love has an astronaut and space clowns, and it's my first book, and it's a science fiction romance, so it has elements of science fiction, but it also has elements of romance in it, and it involves, so now we'll get into plot. So it involves a woman who breaks up with their partner and then becomes an astronaut to spite them. And then when she's in space, sort of, doing space stuff. That's a technical term, right? Space stuff. She does space stuff. Let's make sure we put that in the pitch because that sounds sciencey. She does space stuff, and that's where she encounters a space clown who woos her. Also, it's like space woos her. So she's an astronaut out of spite who gets space wooed by a space clown. Yeah, sure. Hell yeah. The barometer here, the thing we want to check on, the thing we want to pay attention to is, does this make me interested? Me, the author. Do I like this idea? Does it make me excited? If it does, put it on the list. If you are on the fence, if you're like, yeah, it's a good idea, but it's not as cool as my other ideas, or, whatever. If you, the author, are indifferent to it, or passive to it, or just kind of like, take it or leave it, do not put it on the list. What you like, that's what goes on the list, all right? I'll say that one more time. What you like, that's what goes on the list. Now, you might be saying, but John, isn't that going to make a really sort of biased thing? Kinda. But who cares about bias? Do we need to be unbiased? Was this a thing where bias doesn't matter? We're marketing your book. You've got to be biased in your own favor, right? You're trying to sell this book. Wouldn't bias be good? I mean, if I was unbiased, I'd be really sort of worried that I know me. And I know my default position is, well, I'm not good enough and I suck. So wouldn't I want to be biased so that I don't think that? It's totally okay to be biased in favor of your own work. It's okay to be happy, and it's okay to be successful, and it's okay to be excited about being successful. That's not the same as being arrogant. That's not the same as being selfish. That's not the same as being conceited or narrow-minded or anything like that. You are just plain happy about having a thing that's cool. Like, I'm really happy that I have like a brand new deck of cards somebody sent me, because I had talked on a stream about how I've been working on shuffling a card to keep my hand dexterity up, and it gives me something to fidget with. And I had a client send me a deck of cards. It's awesome. I was really excited that I had this killer sandwich. I'm just excited about it. I like it. It was awesome. I've got iced tea here. It's great. Love it. That doesn't mean like I'm superior to you. There's nothing to do with being superior to anybody else. It just means these are the things I'm excited about, and it's genuinely okay, if not critical, in the hellscape that is this existence, that you have things that genuinely make you happy, that you don't apologize for being happy about, and that you want to share with other people so that other people can feel the same sort of joy and comfort you do. It's okay to be happy about stuff, so be biased. Be pro you and be pro your work. Because if you're not pro your work, why would anybody else suddenly just do it for you? You're trying to sell this thing. If you come at it like, well, yeah, like, come on now. I guess if you had $3.99, yeah, maybe you'd buy this book. I don't know. Is that going to convince anybody? Is that going to be like, oh, God, yeah, I have $3.99. I better give it to this guy for this book? No. It's okay to be excited about your book. So we're going to make this list of all the things that excite us about this book. Big stuff, little stuff, medium-sized stuff, in any order. Get it all down in your head. Just get it all out of there. Make a big old list. Okay? And yeah, I'm talking about a book, but you can easily plug this out for a podcast or a newsletter or a video game or a role-playing game or cosplay or an app or music or sex work or a chicken farm you made, or I don't know, anything. But since the majority of the people I talk to and stream to are writers of some kind, I think, at least to the best of my knowledge, you guys write stuff, I aim it towards books. If, by the way, you're checking this out and you're not a writer, I would love to know what you are a creative in. Just, say so in chat. Leave me a comment on YouTube, something like that. And I will certainly branch out my adjectives when describing creatives. But for now, book people, here's what's up. So we're going to be enthusiastic and excited about our work. And if, by the way, just to get this out of the way, if you're one of the people who thinks this is dumb because it's too simple, or you're too cool to like demonstrate enthusiasm because that would just sort of, ruin your image or require you to appear silly, and that might, step on your ego or something, you are going to have a tougher time marketing, because you have to be willing to appear a little silly. First of all, it's okay to be silly. It's not the end of the world. No one's saying that silly automatically equals immature. It's just that you got to appear goofy sometimes. You get to make fun of yourself. You get not self-deprecate to the point of like personal harm, but you got to have a little fun with this, because it's tough. It can be scary. It can be daunting. So we're going to take the sting out of that by, having some fun with it. And you are not too cool to try and help yourself grow and succeed as a creative. So sit down, Francis. It's okay. Get over yourself, and let's just make that list of cool stuff. Now, let's suppose we have, 10 things on our list. I want you to go through, once whatever you figure out, however big your list is. I'm going to use 10 because it's a round number that I can remember off the top of my head. I want you to eliminate the things off this list that are absolutely, they're true because they're in the book and they're exciting to you, but it's going to require an awful lot of explanation to get somebody else up to speed. This is how we eliminate things like the bully Cliff out of the book, because I can't really pitch Cliff without you understanding more about Cliff. And it's not really important to the book. Or the blender, or the fact that, there's a really cool, I use the word scintillating to describe clouds or whatever. Like, that's fine. But it's really hard to use that as an element to pitch from. So I want to eliminate the stuff, just kind of cross it off, that doesn't necessarily work as well as other stuff does. Part of this is going to be a guess. There's no way around it. Part of it's going to be a guess, and that's fine. But highlight, first, eliminate the stuff that absolutely it's nice, but you're not quite sure how you would immediately get somebody else enthusiastic about it. Cross that stuff off. that should remove at least one or two things from your list. If you find that that first sort of checkpoint removes more than half your list, you need to go back and do the first part of this exercise again, where you're generating stuff you're genuinely excited about. And maybe that means sort of getting over yourself to some degree, or loosening up to some degree, or coming at this when you're in a better mood, or generally stop trying to predict what you think somebody else will like and instead just go with what you like. Because while this threshold of eliminate the stuff that isn't super huge and isn't super enthusiastic, it's a threshold for sure, but it shouldn't like disqualify more than 50% of your list. So let's say, for the sake of our argument, for the sake of our example, we eliminate the small stuff. We eliminate, let's say, 3 out of 10 things, leaving us 7 total things on our list. However many things it eliminates for you, that's up to you. We want to do one more sort of culling, one more sort of paring down. And I want to look at the remaining 7 items, the remaining 5 items, however many items you have left after you parse out the stuff that doesn't work. I want you to start to look for ways all these things, or some of these things, or one to one of these things, look for connections between them. And I want you to rank them. Well, let's say your first idea connects to maybe 3 things. Your second idea maybe connects to 5 things. Your 8th idea connects to 2 things. I want you to rank the what's called flexibility of your ideas. Ideas that better connect to multiple things get higher priority on our list. Let's do some examples, because it's sort of a difficult thing to conceive of. If we're making a list of all the stuff that our book has in it that we can connect to other things that's in our book, we might find it easier to talk about the lady who becomes an astronaut, kind of like an after-the-fact mind map. Yeah, kind of. That's one way to certainly think about it. You can also think about it in terms of the relationship between these ideas. We might find it easy to weave the idea of astronaut into more things than if we call it a romance novel. We're not saying it's not a romance novel, but we're saying the idea of being an astronaut or having an astronaut, we can connect that with turns of phrase or concepts more than we find romance limiting or more limiting than astronaut. Or love might have more connectivity than space clown. It's about seeing different ways we can connect different words. And right now we are looking strictly at the quantity of potential connections. Now, chances are that's going to boil down to the broader conceptual stuff: love, main character, antagonist, stakes, whatever. The big picture stuff is going to have likely more connectivity than the more specific stuff. And that's totally fine. If that's the case, you have not broken this. You're doing fine. Broad concepts will almost always have more connectivity than the more specific stuff, because they're broad. That's just how language works. Whoever just came in, hello, thanks for being here. It's nice to see you. So we make our list, and we're going to prioritize all these connections. Some ideas, some words are going to have more possible connections than others, and that's fine. Put them, though, at the top of a column. Put them in their own, rank it. Things that are, things that have 8 connections. I'm making up numbers. Things with higher connections go above stuff with lower connections. If you find that a lot of stuff has all the same connectivity, that's wonderful. Again, you didn't break anything. And if you find stuff has very limited connectivity, that's okay. You didn't break anything. It just means you're going to have to work a little harder to stitch the next pieces together. So, step 1, let's just go over this one more time. Step 1, we made a list of the stuff that makes us excited about this book. That could have been words, that could have been phrases, that could have been concepts. Again, this is just for you. If you want to abbreviate this or use acronyms or backronyms or break it down however you want, that's up to you. You do whatever you got to do. Nobody else is going to see this except you. Everybody else is going to see the finished product of the thing we're doing right now. So don't worry about how pretty it looks or where it is or how big it is. None of that. Just you make this whatever you got to make this, okay? Step 1, we made our list. Step 2, we sort of bounded off the things by eliminating the stuff that we were less enthusiastic about than other stuff. We reduced the size of the overall list. Step 3, we started to organize and prioritize items on this list based on how well we could connect them with other things that still existed on this list. Everybody with me so far? Because we're going to go on to step 4 now. We're going to look at the priority of these things, and we look at our reorganized list. And the things that are in like the top 2 or 3 positions, those are things that are definitely going to show up in a pitch because they have the most connection with the other things in here. They're the building blocks of your pitch. I know, this sounds like a very sort of dry and impersonal way to get started, but if you're somebody who's like, oh, I hate pitching, pitching sucks, I'm not any good at it, you're going to need some crunchy recipe to give you a base so that we can kind of improv a little and loosen up a little to fill in the gaps and develop what we need to. Sometimes you got to start off crunchy so that you can play around with the space later. But again, remember, our primary currency, our primary fuel for this entire marketing experience is your enthusiasm. Okay? So let's suppose we have this list and we're sitting there thinking about how our protagonist, who doesn't have a name, and it doesn't really matter that she doesn't have a name, but our protagonist and our space clown, who also doesn't have a name, again, not terribly important right now that we have a name. Maybe later we can think of one, but it's not super important right now. We start to see that they have the most connection along with the romance angle or the astronaut science fiction angle, more so than the fact that there's, she's on her way to a space station. It's still interesting, but it doesn't have as many connections as this love kind of dynamic we're developing between two characters. And the only reason we've prioritized that is because we know we've got a science fiction romance novel. If you have a role-playing game or a podcast or something, then clearly you're going to focus more on stuff about those products or those ideas or those activities. And that's fine. Again, just using an example. So we have this list, and we've started to find its foundational pieces. What I want you to do, now that you've got your sort of foundational pieces, I want you to write them down next to each other, just sort of left to right. 1, 2, 3, however many you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. Ideally, you have more than one. If you only have one, go back to the list and grab whatever one had. Just grab one off the list. Most of the time, people do this exercise. They have 2 or 3 at least. And if you're still having trouble coming up with, more than 1 or 2, go back to what makes you excited about this book. What do you think is cool? Not what you think other people will think is cool. Not what you think other people will think is cool. Not what you think other people will think is cool. Straight up, what do you think is cool? Because you're the one who's got to give this pitch. You're the one who's going to write this stuff down. So, what do you think? Be honest with yourself. It matters. So we take our foundational blocks here, the first things that excite us, and we've got them in order and we've got them prioritized. We're going to take these things and write them left to right on a piece of paper because we're basically going to reverse Mad Libs for our first pitch. Remember Mad Libs as a kid? Everything eventually turned into farts and butts. But prior to that, you could always shape an idea, but it required you, instead of writing different adjectives and adverbs and stuff, you really had to come up with nouns and verbs. Whereas now we've got the nouns. So now we're going to reverse engineer. We're going to reverse Mad Lib this. We've got a couple nouns. We've got a couple concepts. Yeah? What could be 1, 2, or 3 sentences that group all these things together? How can we create a basic relationship between these prioritized concepts that is accurate to the book, like don't just make stuff up, and two, that you're enthusiastic about? How can you talk about these things in 1 to 3 sentences in a way that ties these things together so that they're related somehow? Maybe you've got to juggle the order around because you're thinking about how to do it, and that's fine. But your mission at this level is to figure out some way of expressing the ideas you've prioritized in a way so that they're related and you remain enthusiastic. We've got nouns, we've got concepts. Maybe in your list, you've wanted to think about consequences and dangers and risks because you're really excited that, oh my God, they only have 20 days before the space station runs out of fuel and it's only, the space clown who can save them. I don't know. Whatever stuff was on your cool stuff list. That's what you go here. Find a way to organize that information into between 1 and 3 sentences. It really can be that simple. They don't have to be pretty sentences right now. We're not in the pretty sentence business yet. We are just in a how do I organize this information business. So, organize this information. Now, I've got a ton of people in chat. Is anybody willing to share? If not, I'll just make one up for Forbidden Clown Love. But is anybody willing to share? Or does anybody want some help with their own stuff? Because I guarantee you, if you want help with your own stuff, you will walk away with your own free pitch. So there's that if you want it. Also, this is my clever diversion so that I can get a mouthful of water. Anybody? All right. Well, then it looks like I'm on my own here for Forbidden Clown Love, and that's totally fine. So in Forbidden Clown Love, I've got the story of a jilted astronaut who falls in love with a space clown on her way to a most dangerous assignment. Because those are the ideas from my list that are like super exciting, you guys. I can't wait to tell you more about them. Jilted astronaut, space clown, dangerous assignment. I got to find some way to tie these together into a sentence that sounds not like literally somebody's first spoken sentence ever. So, how do we do that? Well, I could name the astronaut, sure. I don't know, let's call her... let's call her Denise. Sure, let's call her Denise. So Denise, the jilted astronaut, goes into space to get wooed by a space clown. Let's call the space clown, Space Clown Pagliacci, because that's a great clown name. So Denise and the great space clown Pagliacci fall in love while Denise is en route to her most dangerous mission in space ever. That's my base sentence. That is, compared to where we will go, not a great pitch, but it is a good start. And I think for a lot of writers, especially writers who get into pitching and stuff, they like build essentially what's called a starter pitch. And since it's not immediately like going to win them 1 million awards or $1 billion trillion, they think, this is garbage and I'm terrible at it. It's essentially the first draft of a pitch. It's not going to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's just, a first draft. So, now we're going to take the same information, the same ideas, and we're going to find a couple different ways of organizing them without changing the language too much. We're going to take our first draft and just play around with its composition. Arguably, we're making a second draft, or less arguably, we've got the same contents and we're shuffling it around. On her way to her most dangerous mission in space ever, Jilta Denise falls in love with the great space clown Pagliacci. Only after falling in love with the great space clown Pagliacci does Denise remember that she has her most dangerous mission in space yet. I'm just finding different ways of organizing this information. There, eventually, when you keep doing this, some of the words are going to lose their meaning and it's just going to sound like word salad. And beyond that, each interpretation is going to lead to a different product overall. Depending on where I put a certain thing in a certain order, you, the listener, are going to come away with a different impression. Here's the next big thing in pitching. Once you get a foundation together, once you get some ideas together, you need to start thinking about how it's going to be heard by another person. This can be tricky because part of this is a guess, but it requires some level of empathy, which can be difficult for some people, either by choice or not. And you need to think about what you're intending to say. How do you want it to come across? I know you want it to come across in such a way that somebody buys the book. That's obvious. We're making a pitch. But how do we want the listener to feel? Do we want them excited? Do we want them interested? Do we want them curious? Do we want them titillated? Do we want them shocked? Do we want them nervous? Do we want them scared? Do we want them confused? Because yes, there is a value to confusing somebody with a pitch. It's a rare thing, but it's still a thing. So think about how you want the reader, the listener, the reader of your pitch, if you're writing it down, how do you want that other person to feel? Because we can't jump to how they're going to react without first knowing how they're going to feel. Now, here's the fun fact. You can't make anybody feel anything. Like, to the best of my knowledge, none of us have that sort of Rasputanic hold on people. But you can certainly influence. And this is where we get to influence. And we influence people, or the jerks who taught me this back in the 90s would flat out call it manipulation because they were using it for skeevy purposes. But we're going to use the word influence because that's essentially what you're doing. You are picking your language and picking your concepts in a way that influence a response. You're not dictating, you're not demanding, you're not forcing. There's no threat, there's no violence, there's no direct harm, nothing like that. But you are influencing people by mentioning some things and not mentioning others. So, how do you want the person to feel? I want them aroused. I want them interested. I want them curious. Just think about it for a second. Just think about it for a second. Whatever that adjective is, whatever that feeling is, write that down somewhere. Because you are going to aim your foundational sentence or sentences towards that feeling. How do we get to that feeling from your sentences? Probably we're going to have to change some language. We're going to have to massage some words. We're going to have to make a sentence longer. We're going to have to make an extra sentence. We're going to have to do some stuff, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's totally okay. Again, this is just how we're going to go from first draft to second draft in this pitch. But it's going to be a big stride forward because now, in addition to having information to give, we have an emotional component. Information plus emotion helps develop effective marketing. We're going to tell you something, and we're going to encourage a feeling that connects the information to the action we want you to take, which in this case is buy our book. Information plus emotion generally leads to action. Sometimes that action is they walk away. Sometimes that action is they buy the book. Sometimes that action is they get, angry at you and hurl a drink in your face. Sometimes that action is, please tell me more. Whatever their action is, we're encouraging an action. Try not to have a pitch where somebody throws a drink in your face. It never went well for me in my 20s. But the fact remains, we need this emotion to give our pitch further angular momentum. Remember, we gave it a vector when we sorted out what we were going to talk about versus what we weren't going to talk about. But now we're going to dial it in even further. Because now we know what we're going to talk about, but now we got to aim at a feeling. We're trying to get you to feel the certain way. So I'm taking the ideas I have. I'm going to find a way to massage this language together. If you're looking to get better at pitching, the two things you can do at this point are, one, get more comfortable with interpreting your language. Basically, listen to more things, read more things, see how words affect you, see what words you respond well to, see how ads use language, see how songs use language. Really be willing to look at words as tools and maybe images or conceptual images, as opposed to very structured grammar things. We're gonna cheat grammar if we need to, because it's more about getting to our end goal of we've got these facts and we're going to tie an emotion to it. So grammar can go out the window. Grammar can go suck eggs if we need it to. It helps sometimes, but other times it can hamstring us. So we want to make sure we're willing to use it when we need and discard it when we don't. So we have this sort of structure intended for our pitch where we're going to take our concept and aim it. So I want, for the sake of our example, I want our book, Forbidden Clown Love by Danielle Snuts. I want our book to come across as a big sweeping romance. I want big emotion. I want people really, like near to swooning upon the fainting couch if I can get it. I want big melodramatic feelings because it's my example, damn it, and I can get what I want. So if I'm looking to manufacture, if I'm looking to lead and encourage and influence big, giant responses, I'm probably going to want big, giant language, because big, giant language tends to get big, giant responses. Look at every movie trailer that's trying to elicit a big, like, oh my God. There's obviously going to be an explosion or a big dramatic reveal or a music sting or something to really, jar people into paying attention. So I want a big reaction, so I'm going to pick big language. You might not want or need a big, giant, oh my God reaction. So maybe your language will be softer, or maybe your language will be more pointed, or maybe your language will be more targeted. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the fact remains, you got to pick your language. This isn't, so here's a line in the sand. We are no longer trying to talk about and only talk about the specific actions or plot of your book. This is not a plot summary. This is not a Wikipedia entry about your book. This is not a recap of it. This is a chain of things to influence or encourage an emotion in a listener. And you're picking that emotion and you're finding words to take these ideas and get them moving in that direction. This is the basis of every pitch. Sometimes we're going to have to use different words. Sometimes we're going to have to use a combination of words. Sometimes we're going to have to make up some phrases. Sometimes we're going to have more than one sentence. The goal here is, I'll be real clear, the goal here is to not do this in the minimum number of words and letters. This is not Name That Tune, where we're trying to win a prize with only one note. What I want instead is something Twitter-sized, because I needed a boundary, because otherwise our pitches would be, pages long. And that's fine, but that's a different Monday night discussion. But I want a string of words or a small paragraph or two sentences or several sentences or some amount of stuff so that I can get my listener, my reader, the person on the other end of this thing, to have the response I want, to encourage them to take an action, which would be going over there and checking out my book and maybe buying it. So I, author Danielle Snuts, have come up with this pitch. Knowing that I want a big, giant reaction from a big audience, I'm going to use big language. So I, Danielle Snuts, am going to say that, tired of having her heart broken one more time, Denise has only one safe refuge, space, period. On her way to her most dangerous mission yet. Astronaut Denise, I'd probably use her last name, but whatever. Astronaut Denise travels across hyperspace lanes and through meteor showers alike, along the way becoming the scientist she always wanted to be. It is only when the great space clown Pagliacci appears that she realizes the true tremendous frontier is her own heart. That's my pitch. That's it. Maybe I want to work the title in next time. But for now, I just want to give it a try. For now, I just want to put something together. Doesn't need to be super perfect. Doesn't need to be super polished. But I need to get my feet under me. I need to get used to organizing my thoughts this way. It's just a base. It's just a start. Over time, I can do more. I can say more. I can practice 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, 80, 1,000, a million times until I'm able to give different versions for different degrees to different dimensions with different language. But if I'm just getting started, my only obstacle when I'm getting started is eliminating the idea that I'm terrible at it. I just want to disprove that idea by generating something. So, generate something. 1 thing, 2 things, 3 sentences, 5 sentences, however big, however it needs to be. Just come up with something. A lot of writers at this point will play too narrow. Well, Denise is an astronaut and she falls in love with a space clown because she's trying to do a plot thing. That's fine. But remember, we're trying to evoke this emotion. And if you keep giving me concrete plot detail or concrete character arc detail, that's just fact. That's just information. That's only half the thing I need to be driven towards action, and that action presumably is buying the book. So I need more than just information. I need some emotion. I need to be evoked. I need to be, here's your technical term, stirred. Yeah, like a drink. Stir me. I'm the listener. Stir me. How are we gonna mix this up? Information's fine. Nothing wrong with information. But when you shift into marketing, we need to add to your compilation. We need to add to that information emotion. And if you dig your heels in because you think, oh, well, I can't do it because I'm not very emotionally articulate, or I just don't like dealing with the stuff, or I get it wrong for whatever reason, the more resistance you put up, the harder it's going to be to market. And I'm not saying you're bad, wrong, dumb, or stupid. Nobody's saying that. But what I'm saying is emotional articulation and emotional influence and emotional knowledge is a developable. You can get better at it. You can practice over time. It just takes time. So just keep going. We started off with stuff you liked. We eliminated the stuff that wasn't as exciting as other things on your list. We organized it based on how connective or interactive these ideas were with each other. Then we wrote a few down. We tried to massage it into a sentence. And then we came up with a couple different versions of these sentences. That's a pitch. Maybe I want to bring up the title. Great, bring up the title. Maybe I want to do that in a second sentence after I talk about Denise and the real final frontier being her heart. Forbidden Clown Love is a science fiction romance story with grease paint, asteroids, and untethered spacewalks. I don't know. Just grab more things off that cool list from the first step. Maybe you don't want to do it that way. Maybe that feels like it's too similar to everybody else. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Forbidden Clown Love is the story of a scientist who's willing to go to the ends of all existence in order to avoid studying the one thing she couldn't before, love. And stop there. I don't bring up the clown. That's fine. I don't frame it in a question. That's fine. I don't frame it with a conditional. That's fine. My whole goal is to arrange my information in and around an emotion and lead you to want more information. That's a pitch. Let's step it up. The next thing we need, once we have a pitch, is something that we're going to need for the next two circles in our sort of outward ripples, our dartboard, our archery target, our concentric circles. We need to take a pitch and we need to have a call to action. Call to action is a very fancy term that basically means, okay, you're thinking about a thing, now do this, do X. A call to action might be something as simple as, you can check out our podcast available wherever wherever you listen to podcasts. It's available every Monday afternoon. Or Forbidden Clown Love is available wherever you buy digital books. Or for more information, go check out the website, writernextdoor.com. It's informational again, because the pitch has all that emotion. But with a call to action, the information is what's called open, because I'm leading you to think about more things. For more information, if you like this sort of thing, go check out the Patreon, patreon.com/JohnHelpsYouCreate. That call to action takes the idea that you're getting here, that you can get more elsewhere, and you can get more elsewhere when you go check out the Patreon, which is true. You should go check out the Patreon, because if I were a Patreon person, then by the end of this week, you'd be getting a very large Space Worm movie in your inbox. You know, if that's your cup of tea. Who knows? Just saying. But the idea overall is a call to action is more informational than emotional. You can always tell the skeevy ones because they make real hyperbolic claims. The ones for like dating, stop being a loser and, give me your email address now, and then, 10 hot chicks will totally be all over you. Garbage like that. Or the stuff you see on Instagram. I get a lot of fitness ones lately for like random stuff you plug into a wall. And that's fine. Whatever. Everybody tries to market this, different stuff. But call to action should encourage me to take action. Go check out a website. Go buy my book. Tell me where I can go listen to a thing. Give me a job. Give me something to do. That's a call to action. You could stop there. Pitch and call to action. Get good at those, and you can go real far. Real far. And you can do a lot. You can pitch shows. You can pitch programs. You can pitch activities. You can pitch dates. You can pitch family events. You can pitch marriage. You can pitch any damn thing. Pitch and call to action are the two sort of baseline tools in the toolbox, right? But what if we want to add more tools? What if we want to do better? What's the next ring in our 3-ring circus? Blurb. What's a blurb? Well, a blurb is a collection of text that echoes. Hang on. Let's not use that word, else the Amazon robot on the room will start chatting. It reflects and repeats. Let's do that. It reflects and repeats elements of the pitch, but we have more space now. Where do we most frequently see a blurb? A back blurb. The back page, the back cover of a book. So over here on our book, Forbidden Clown Love, we had on our cover, we have all the basic things a cover needs. We have a title, Forbidden Clown Love. We have the author's name. And we have our imagery, which we said was going to be a spaceship flying into a big like space flower. Real suggestive because it's John's example. And we have our title, Forbidden Clown Love, and we have our author, and she wants to go by something more casual. So instead of Danielle Snut, she just goes by D Snuts. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Mostly that joke is more for me than for everybody else, but all the same, we have to have our author name, and we have to have our title, and we have to have our image. So what goes on the back? Now, we have somewhere between 2 and 4 paragraphs worth of space, right? Like, we have room here. We could do a lot in this space. So let's take advantage of it. How many words? Oh, it's always safe to bet that somewhere between 300 and 325 words in whatever number of paragraphs that can be. And that includes, if you're going to include it, though I don't recommend you include it, an author bio paragraph. I want you to think about the blurb without that, because I want you to get better at blurbing rather than talking about yourself. That's a different Monday night thing. For now, we're just going to blurb. So we're going to take the elements from our pitch, and we're going to expand on them. And whereas in the pitch, we just used the word themselves. Astronaut, space clown, space woos, etc. Instead of just using those phrases, we're going to dedicate somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 2, maybe 1 to 3 sentences about those things. Not necessarily in the same order, not necessarily verbatim, but we're going to turn the pitch into a thinking point, not a thesis statement. This is not a 4th grade book report where we have to, say that the point of this book is to ... We're not repeating our pitch into our first sentence. We're not, like, at all. What we're going to do instead is use our pitch as a jump point. What elements from our pitch do we want to use? And if we find we need more, hey, you know where we go? We go to that enthusiasm list. So we get enthusiastic. We put these things together. My chat is freaking out right now. Not because of people in it. In fact, if anything, I'm not even sure I have people in it. But just the bot or whatever is going banana pants. So I'm assuming right now I'm talking to maybe like 1, 2 people, which is fine. I'm glad you're still here. I don't know if you guys on your end are getting as many weird, strange messages as I am. But all the same, hi, I hope you're still here. I hope you're checking this out. Otherwise, this will be on YouTube. So there's that. But for now, our blurb. We want to package the stuff from our pitch in more language because we have more space. We're no longer limited to 280 characters. Now we're up around 280 words. So what else can we say? There's a temptation for a lot of writers, especially writers who were busy telling themselves they weren't good at pitching. There's a temptation to use a lot of questions. There's nothing on that side. That's alarming. Okay. Wow. Well, shoot. Okay. I will take that in from... Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. I'll take that in stride and mosey on along. That's kind of a bummer. Not your fault. My fault. But we'll come back to that. So we want to take this information and we want to expand on it. So, well, I appreciate you listening. Thanks. You didn't have to. Your time is valuable to you, and I appreciate you spending it with me. We take this information in our blurb, and okay, cool. And it's just me, and it's just Streamlabs OBS being Streamlabs OBS. Neat. Just what I wanted. Thanks so much. We take this blurb, and we expand it. Well, we want to talk about, what did we use in our pitch? We had our astronaut, we had our clown, we had our romance, we had space mission. Cool. Gives us some groundwork. Nice. Same thing we had when we did the pitch. We take our foundational ideas and we just move them forward. But there's that temptation to put everything in the form of questions or to use a lot of ellipses. And I'm just going to dial the music down for a second. Use a lot of ellipses and ask the reader of the back cover some kind of question that they couldn't possibly answer. Like, can Denise learn to love again? And you don't want to give the impression that, like, your reader should ever insert into your book or into your blurb, because it just sounds like you waited the entire blurb to set that up. It would be about the same as saying that your fictitious author's name is D. Snuts, as if you were waiting all day to make that joke, because that joke always makes you laugh. Who knows? But we don't want to constantly frame things in terms of questions, because questions have 2 definite problems in pitches and blurbs. One, they are a really elementary thing. They make it look like you are uncomfortable doing this and that you've done it a million times before. Like, they're the baseline. Anybody can frame something interesting in a question. That's how Jeopardy works. So, questions. They're pretty simple. And 2, they have a very finite answer. Like, will Denise learn to love again in space? I hope so. There's a whole goddamn space book about it. So probably yes. Maybe Streamlabs saw the joke coming and was trying to protect me. Possibly. I don't know. It could also be that, like, meanwhile, elsewhere, there's like 2 other things running, and I've got this going on, and I'm streaming music, and I've got things processing in the background. Who knows? But mainly, I'm just glad that somebody is here. So thank you for being here. We don't want questions. We don't want ellipses. We don't want questions because they're very basic, and we can do better than basic. Because it's not that hard to do better than basic. And we don't want to ask questions because they're almost always going to boil down to a yes-no answer. Or a, yeah, I hope so, because you got a whole book about it answer. We don't want readers thinking yes, no. We want the question to be implied. We want the reader thinking about the question, knowing or believing that the answer to the question they're asking themselves is within the book. So they better go buy the book so they can answer the question they're asking themselves. If we overtly ask the question for them, and it's our book, on some level, we are communicating to them that we don't know how to answer our own question. So the next time you're in the hashtag writing community and you are following along all these contests and you see any number of people framing their pitch as a question, feel free to outright think that they don't know their own material very well because they got to ask somebody else for an answer. That's why you don't put questions down. But let's move on to the other well-tread piece of writing. Oh, I'm on YouTube, so I can't swear too much. Material. Let's call it material. The dreaded ellipsis. First of all, as we've talked about in writers' chats, the vast majority of people using an ellipsis or ellipses all over the place are using them wrong. They're used to indicate decays in volume in order to create silence. They are not necessarily there to heighten tension. In nonfiction contexts, they're used to indicate an abridgment of words. We eliminate things so that we can stitch whole ideas together. They are not dramatic pauses. They're just periods of silence that bounce back to a volume. We don't want them sprinkled all over our blurb either. Why? Because we have 300 words, so why not use the space? Rather than let, do the talking for us, why don't we use our words? Because we can more effectively tell our story than a ... could. So why don't we do that? Just kind of keep it straightforward. And we're going to take our concrete ideas and we're going to expand them a little bit. How do we know what goes first? There isn't anything that must go first. We want to start with our protagonist? Fine. You want to start with the stakes of her most dangerous space mission yet? Great. You want to start with the evil space clown who turns into be her most passionate lover? Fantastic. You want to talk about the things that got Denise into the rocket in the first place? Totally. Go for it. Sure. Is there a wrong answer? No. Are there some answers that are more effective than others? Yes. What determines that efficacy? How well you arrange your own ideas. One size is never going to fit all here. So we piece together our back blurb. It's more or less the same size as a query letter. We piece together our back blurb using our foundational ideas, our unique selling points that we've, what's the word we want to use? Transformed, I guess, into development points. And we've expanded on them so that it isn't just 1 or 2 words to describe the idea. It's 1 or 2 sentences, maybe a whole paragraph. And we've massaged it. We've worked it over a few times. We've described it a few different ways. We've thought about how best to make this idea sound appealing to somebody who doesn't have the information otherwise. And we've tried to be consistent in how we've described it so that there's no giant confusion in one sentence where we talk about Denise as a tough-driven woman, And in the other sentence, we've talked about her as a gentle, mousy snowflake. We don't want to create disparity or any kind of confusion when we're describing our point, because remember, the reader is looking to this because there's an implied call to action. I have the book in my hand. I'm reading the website. My implied call to action is, I want to get more information. If you create confusion about one of the elements in your book, that does not help your call to action. It just makes it sound like you don't know what you're talking about. And you should know what you're talking about. It's your book. That's a blurb. It's a little bit bigger than a pitch. It's somewhere in the ballpark of 3 to 5 times bigger than a pitch. I'm making up numbers there. They're averages. But it's bigger than a pitch. And it expands on the same ideas as a pitch. And it's built on the idea that these are the things that make you enthusiastic with your stuff. And it's got an implied call to action, whereas your pitch had an explicit call to action. For more information, go check out blah, 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 blah. You can get this book wherever books are sold. You can listen to the new adventures of this podcast coming out every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. Whatever it might be. But we've gone from explicit to implied or implicit call to action. We made that exchange by adding more text from pitch to blurb. Now, you can have an explicit call to action in a blurb. You write marketing material or something. For more details, go check out the website. ForbiddenSpaceClownLove.com. That's totally fine. But more often than not, because it's the back of a book, you don't necessarily need to say, hey, go buy this book. Because if they're looking at it already, they're already on the fence as to whether or not they're going to buy it. So save yourself the words and leave your call to action to be implied. Make sense? I know that sounds really basic, but I'm always surprised by the number of people who are like, oh, I never thought about that. So that's why I started talking about it. But those are just the first 2 of the 3 tools in our toolbox here. Pitch, pretty small, pretty narrow, has a specific and dedicated audience. We're going to talk about audience shortly. But a pitch has a certain utility. A blurb has a certain utility that's different than the utility of a pitch. We use pitches in some places. We use blurbs in others. But what if we want to expand out to our third big circle? Biggest and broadest. The ever-dreaded sales copy. Oh, man. Oh, you want to make the whole internet blow up. You go talk about sales copy. Because there's tons of schools of thought as to how to do it and who does it well and which old white dude do you need to reference or whose materials do you need to source, or, it becomes a gendered thing and a race thing and a class thing and an age thing, and all of that's in service of whether or not you're going to sell one product or another, about selling products to an audience. But by and large, what this really boils down to, what this really shakes out to be, is sales copy is a very prolonged blurb with a very clear or multiple very clear calls to action to lead someone to do a thing. So just like we took the blurb and the pitch and expanded it to make the blurb, now we're going to take the blurb and expand it to make sales copy. But now that we're expanding it, we have more room to fill. So much room, in fact, that there's no real necessary word count for sales copy. It can be up to 1,000 words or 10,000 characters, or it can be, multiple scrollings on a website page. It can be as big or as small as you want. And for a lot of writers, that presents quite a bit of frustration because it's just paralyzing. Oh my God, what do I do? Oh my God, this is awful. Look, it doesn't matter how large it is. It doesn't matter how many paragraphs it is. What matters is that the paragraphs that are there package information and emotion and lead us to a call to action. If you want to do that in 2, do that in 2. You want to do it in 4, do it in 4. You need to do it in 22 with a couple charts? Sure. Whatever you need to do, do. Because it has more space, sales copy affords us the ability to use even more tools. The pitch just allowed us to use unique selling points and turn them into developmental points, right? When we went from the pitch to the blurb, we started using sentences and paragraphs to further organize our ideas. Well, now, with sales copy, we're going to still have our pitch. It's going to be parked in there, or maybe we're just going to outright source it and just stick it in there verbatim. That's fine. And we're going to still have our unique selling points turned into developmental tools, developmental points. And we're still going to have paragraphs and sentences, but now we're going to add more stuff to it. And we're going to do that by going all the way back to the beginning. Remember that list we wrote of all that cool stuff? This sales copy is where we bring up all those other things, not the stuff you discarded, not Cliff the Bully, but all the other stuff that didn't immediately make the first run in the pitch. All those things that survived the checks on connectivity and interactivity and all that stuff that was really cool that you liked about your book. Hey, guess what? They all can live in the sales copy somewhere. The way this is normally taught to business people, like squares, the way this is normally taught to business people is that you want to list things either as features or benefits. And oh God, I can feel myself gagging just saying that. The fundamental difference between a feature and a benefit is a feature is what a thing has and a benefit is what a thing does. Oh, it has Corinthian leather seats. The benefit, I get to drive my car sitting in baby soft luxury. Sure. Features and benefits are great, but it's a book. The primary benefit of a book is reading. The primary feature of a book is words, usually, or some other medium by which to convey ideas. Let's not be ableist. But that's about it. So features and benefits when structuring book-based sales copy falls a little short. So we don't want to only think about features and benefits. We want to think about something different. We're going to expand past features and benefits. Because sure, you can do features and benefits. It's just going to be a real short list. What we want to do actually don't want to say instead. I want to say in addition to. What we want to do in addition to features and benefits when we're talking about our book are two different things. Hooks and statements. Oh boy, here we go. A statement is a thing you're saying about your book. And that can be a factual thing. This book is the story of Denise who falls in love with a space clown. It can be a factual thing about the production. This book has 85,000 words in it. This statement can be the cover, because that's a factual statement of this is the cover of the book. Any piece of information that you are presenting, just as is, and presumably true, because you're describing a true thing of the book, is a statement. Anything. You could have 45 bajillion of these things if you wanted. You could just make a whole ass list. Some of them are going to be bigger and neater than others. Oh, it's in a single language and all the pages are numbered. Those are statements. They're not terribly useful ones, but they are statements. Hooks. Well, a hook is a statement, sort of. Because a hook is a statement that you are using for a specific purpose. A hook, remember how we talked about how information plus emotion helps develop a pitch? Hook plus statement helps create sales copy. A hook is a statement that you are maneuvering and angling and steering towards reaching your target, your potential customer. We use a hook. Oh, okay. Sorry, the phone dinged. We use a hook to distinguish from statements, to break up the monotony of statements in a way to make sure the reader's on our breadcrumb trail to our call to action. We can chain together 55 hooks if we wanted to. Eventually, we just need to get to the call to action. but we sprinkle them in and around other statements so that we get a cumulative effect. Hook, statement. These are not just synonyms for feature and benefit. They're an adjacent pair of tools. They're the next two tools in the toolbox. You can feature and benefit, or feature and Benny if you're in the know and want to sound, like you tuck your shirt in when you do your job. Or you can go to hooks and statements. That's fine. They're all four tools that work, so long as it leads us to a call to action. That call to action can be a sales link. That call to action can be a click this button and give me your email address. That call to action can be a discount code that encourages us to buy the thing faster or easier. It just needs to be something, a call to action. The call to action needs to be something that gets us to do a thing we weren't doing already. Like, make a purchase. Sales copy. It can help, though it is ableist, to craft your sales copy in what's called a hyper-visual way. You see this for products where the hooks are more visual than descriptive, like car commercials. They want you seeing the car as a thing on the road because it's easier to make the car appear a certain way because you see it. You see the two people vibing out to the radio. You see the two people pulling up to the jazz place. You see the car on the road with the rims spinning. You see the lights coming off the wax job, etc. And that's supposed to help evoke a feel. The problem is, at least for, text purposes, you got to assume that your audience isn't only sighted. So you got to be willing to think about your sales copy as being more than dominated primarily by your visuals. Like your character art, or your alternate covers, or your interior map, or whatever other stuff you've stuck on the inside of the book because you think it's going to help your book stand out on the shelf where we can only see the cover otherwise. That stuff. That, by the way, is the downside to doing all those other marketing things. You are suggesting on some level that, hey, I'm aiming this at a segment of the population. And that's fine if you are. Nothing wrong with that. It's a little, it excludes some people, and those people are also consumers, so maybe you want to think about branching out to incorporate them into your next round of possible consumers. But all the same, a hyper-visual, or what used to be called a visual-first approach, is not necessarily the best tool for selling a book. It's great for cars, because they're primarily visually acuable status symbols. We care about what a car looks like. The car goes by and we say, ooh, not because of what it is. Oh my God, a thing that's destroying the planet by consuming fossil fuels. But we look at it and go, oh, great, that thing's real visually interesting. It has seat belts and lights and stuff. Again, I'm on YouTube, otherwise there'd be a lot of swearing. So we don't necessarily want hyper-visual. We want a different hyper. We want hyper-experiential. Hyper-experiential. Oh, yeah. Hyper-experiential is the idea that reading this book, getting this story from the page into your brain, is going to feel good and is going to be worth your time. And the best tool to get hyper-experiential material across is enthusiasm. And that, by the way, is why we started this whole thing an hour and 33 minutes ago, coming from a place of enthusiasm. Because if we had to generate it now, 90 plus minutes in, we'd all sort of be dragging and kind of feel a little shell-shocked. But we started off there because it's more effective. Now, if you're listening to this and you don't have a book, maybe you have a game or a podcast or an event, or you're trying to find creative ways to propose to a partner, I had somebody take a pitch workshop once because they wanted to learn how to propose. It was pretty cool. I was pretty pleased about that. Or you're opening a new business, or you're trying to convince your kids to take a bath. Stuff like that. Anything can be pitched. Anything. Anything. Anything can be blurbed. And you can craft sales copy for anything. The idea that, they can sell salt to a slug, because there are several sales metaphors and comparisons that use various ethnic and racial slurs. So let's not use those. So instead, we'll just go with salt to slugs. All those kind of comparatives help create and maintain that picture that selling things is sleazy, or that being good at selling things is sleazy. And it's just transactional language. It's just a deal. Hey, I'm going to tell you this thing, and in exchange, you're going to get excited and do a thing for me. You're going to buy this book. It's no different than saying, hey, do you want pizza? There's some on the counter. It's no different. It's about a different thing. But the idea that I'm trying to engage you in a transaction so that you take an action. I'm going to tell you about a thing so that you do something. Whether I'm talking about, hey, there's pizza if you want it. Or, hey, do you want to go out sometime? Or, do you want to buy this book? It's all the same thing. It's all the same kind of challenge and interest provocation. So my enthusiasm makes a big deal. If you ever want to test this, by the way, try and talk about your book in the flattest, dullest, I'm dead inside monotone you can muster. It will sound funny, but it's worth a try. Like this. Forbidden Clown Love is a romance novel. It's got an astronaut named Denise, and she falls in love with a clown. It's about the fact that people run away from their feelings, and space is a metaphor for the distance between two people and how they connect. Like whatever. That is a nice pitch that would really do better if I was more enthusiastic about it. But if I deliver it in what is at best just dullness, I'm eliminating the call to action because I'm reducing the importance of the emotion, and I'm just being informational. If I wanted information, I'd go read a recipe. I want a combo. I want information plus emotion. It's not sleazy. It's just, hey, this is some language I'm chaining together. This is why we practice it. Make sense? Everything we do, whether it's headers or images or different subdividers or different web pages to steer and create different experiences for people, whatever it might be, all that stuff is designed to provoke emotion, to provoke interest, to keep people engaged. Engagement is just a measure of emotional reception. That's the magic trick here. If I can make you feel a thing, and this is not me bragging, this is just a general statement. If I can make you feel a thing, if I can encourage this feeling inside you, or if I can lead you through and influence you towards a set of ideas to provoke a feeling so that you feel a thing by the end of a thing, I've accomplished my job. Because again, I can't force you. I have no mind control powers. Because if I did, oh God, I'd essentially be Magneto. The whole world would be different. And the last thing really anybody wants is to give me like Sith powers, and then it's done. I'm eating a lot of cheesesteaks, and there's a lot of just stuff that's different in the planet. Mainly, I'm eating a lot of cheesesteaks. But the fact remains, by and large, that you have to, when doing this, whether we're pitching a book or a game or a movie or this or that, or take a bath with, do something, wash behind your ears, whatever. whatever you're pitching, you've got to divorce the preconceived notion that it's sleazy, scummy, bad, manipulative, or whatever out of it. Because all you're trying to do is just get somebody to pay attention. The same thing you were doing when you were a little kid asking to get picked up. The same thing you were doing when you were hoping to get picked for kickball. You've always been doing it. You're just asking for attention that you're entitled to receive. And why are you entitled to receive it, you might ask? Because you did a thing. You wrote a book. That's got to be worth something. It's valuable. It makes a difference. So talk about it. Be proud of it. One of the problems when you talk about sales copy and pitches and blurbs and all that is that invariably somebody somewhere wants to get really competitive with it. They want to turn into this thing where it's like, I'm going to write better sales copy than that guy. Or my sales copy is going to be so good it outsells that guy. And I understand that. Like, I get that. You want to win. You want to, totally crush it, bro. You want to make sure you do really well because you're counting on that money, because you need that money, because capitalism is a tool designed to ruin everything. For whatever reason, or you just want to, sit upon a horde like Scrooge McDuck or a dragon or something. I don't know, whatever you want to do. But the competition, it's not going to work. Because loads of people can buy books. Like, if I buy your ebook, that doesn't eliminate somebody else's ability to buy my ebook. The ebook never runs out of stock. So it's not really a limited inventory, buy it now before it's gone kind of thing, because it's a file. Yeah, that's a real wrinkle in your competition. And then it just becomes, well, I've sold more than them. Okay. So what, you've made more money and therefore you are a better author? Or you're just a better marketer, which is fine if you want to be a better marketer. There's nothing wrong with that. But by and large, I don't want people, especially people who don't think they're very good at marketing, worrying about whether or not they're competing. Because at the end of the day, everybody's trying to accomplish the same thing. To get people who don't already own the book, to get them to buy a copy of the book. And just like your first book's first draft was not good compared to your third book's fifth draft or whatever, you got better over time, and you will get better over time when it comes to sales copy. But framing it in this sort of sense of constant competition misunderstands the point. The point was just to encourage people down a lane of feelings, to provoke them to take action in the form of your call to action for a singular benefit that is mutual. They get a book that you're excited for them to have, and they're excited to give you some money or something in exchange for it. That's it. No, like, I'm better than you. My genitals or stream of urine is more superior to anybody else's. It's just not that. It is instead just, hey, you want this thing? It's pretty cool. Here's why it's cool. Check it out if you want. You can check it out right here. Neat. And on we move with our day. Everything else is just posture. That's really all the notes I have. I have to apologize to some degree. You would think after, like a 15 plus hour workday, I would have had more time to make more notes. But this is a pretty straightforward thing, and I would love to help answer your questions. So if you're out there and you've got questions, I don't care how specific they are, I would be happy to answer them right now. So if you've got questions in chat, fire away. Otherwise, I am going to dig deep into my well. So D Snuts doesn't have to be better. No, that's my just sample author's name. D Snuts can certainly get better over time. I mean, D Snuts always gets better over time, but you got to start somewhere. So D Snuts starts here, right here, right here. And over time, D Snuts gets better. Maybe they have a really good experience with their first book, but then they deal with some criticism in their second book, so D Snuts gets salty. I don't know. We'll find out with a subsequent book, I suppose. But the fact remains that it's very doable, this stuff. It's really super doable. You just need to try and practice. Somewhat unrelated, will you make emotes for Twitch? Yes, on 2 conditions. 1, I need somebody to explain to me what the point of an emote is. Genuinely, I don't know. I have looked up how to make them a million times. I have the formula, I have the dimensions, but I don't know what function they serve. I'm not opposed to them, but without knowing their function, I don't really know what I would do with them. And I want to make them look a certain way. So if they serve a function, I want them to be useful and nice to that function. But yeah, I will totally do that on 1, the condition that someone explains them to me. And 2, if I had any kind of idea that somebody would use them. But again, that goes back to the function, because I don't know what they do. And if I don't know what they do, I don't know how to provide them in a way to encourage people to get them to do whatever they do. So if you're out there listening to this, or if you're checking this out on YouTube, and you know what a Twitch emote is for, let me know. Partially, it's an advertisement for your channel. I'm all for advertisement. A reward for subs. It's a reward? Oh, I mean, I'm happy to reward you guys. And a unique way for followers to interact. Okay, see? Look at that. You just packaged information and emotion to get me to a call to action to say, yes, that I'll go make emotes. Look at you. You just pitched. If you were to expand on all those ideas, you could make a blurb. If you were to expand even further, you could write sales copy. Look at you. You did a thing. I'm so proud. So proud. Yes, I will make emotes. I can't guarantee that they'll be particularly great, as I am just a one-man shop. But I guarantee you that the rest of my week gets exponentially easier than it was today. So, yeah. What oof? What oof? Why are we oofing? You did a thing. Good job doing a thing. Good job. I'm proud of you. All right. Other questions, issues, comments, etc. Else I will dig deep in the typical questions about sales copy questions and give you some closing points to think about. First question I usually get asked is, can I hire somebody else to do it? Yes, totally you can. It's going to cost you some money. A good sales copywriter, it's expensive. And it gets expensive quickly because it's never just going to be one thing. They do well with one thing. You're going to need 5 other different things to plug in lots of different places. Yeah, you can totally farm it out, though. You're just going to pay for it. Just like, editing. You can totally do it yourself. But if you want to get, good results, pay a pro. Next thing. At what point should you start thinking about your sales copy? Well, ideally, you want to do it definitely after your last draft is done, but it's usually not a bad idea to start thinking about how you'd shape your pitch, shape your blurbs, shape your sales copy, right around the time you hit the 2/3 complete mark on your second draft. That's where you start thinking about it. You can start thinking about it in your first draft if you really want to, but by and large, just for the sake of focus and organization, wait till you get about 2/3 of the way into your second draft. You'll have a better handle on the book. You'll have a better handle on how you're presenting the ideas. And ideas will segue together and chain together much more effectively. Let's see. Let's dive into another pretty standard one. What about SEO or the algorithm? Well, as I said at the beginning, those things are specific to the platform you are using to sell the idea. And a lot of that boils down to the words you use scraped together in a particular order. So that's further evidence, I think, that it behooves you not to memorize a specific master list of words so that everything sounds generic, but so that you can speak about your book, product, thing, etc. in a number of different ways. So that no matter how you organize the SEO, no matter how the algorithm prioritizes or catalogs information, you have some kind of adaptable toolbox to take wherever you want to go for whatever purpose. Any questions, you guys? Else we will wrap this thing up and get out the door. All right. I think that's it. Yeah, I apologize for running out of steam so hard, but it's been a long day. Whew. This is nearing hour 17. Oof. All right. Let's cover some particulars. If you like this, it is available right now on YouTube. If you want more content like this, check out YouTube. It's got all the repository for everything else. If you want more stuff like this, just about sales, just about marketing, let me know. Leave a comment on YouTube. Leave a comment here in Twitch chat. Jump on the Discord, accessible through the Patreon, and let me know. Leave me an email. Find me on Twitter. Let me know what you want, and I'm more than happy to deliver to the best of my ability. You can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/awesome, AWESOME, _JOHN, awesome _John. The underscore, by the way, is shift in the dash key. If you want to support this stream and everything else we do, all the other streams and all the other recordings and all the other everythings, the best thing you can do is go check out the Patreon, patreon.com/John, JOHN, helps you, YOU, John helps you create. Because it is from that tiny little Patreon that the entire Writer Next Door empire springs forth. So there's that. If you ever want help with your marketing, straight up, you want help with your marketing, you want help with your pitch, you want help with your blurb, you want help with whatever, the best thing you can do, if you have time and interest and you're strongly motivated, is to go to writernextdoor.com and book an appointment with me, and I'll be happy to talk to you in specific at length as to how best to market, pitch, develop, move your stuff. It would be my great pleasure. Anytime. The next time, by the way, that I'll be right here in your ears in this very channel will be Wednesday. This coming Wednesday, in fact, which is October the 27th, the last Wednesday of the month. I will be right here for the Writers Chat. That's 12 questions plus the questions of those in chat, aimed to help you improve your writing, get you more creative, get you thinking, get you doing, get you just kicking more creative ass. That's Wednesday, starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. There will, of course, be tweets and graphics, etc., all for it. I want to thank everybody for being here. It really meant a great deal. I don't know if you can hear in the background, but there's like a monsoon happening. Like a stunning amount of monsoon. There's lightning and thunder, and the roof is rattling. So that's always fun and exciting. But I hope wherever you are, I hope however you're doing, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're safe. I hope you're taken care of. I hope you're taking care of people around you. I hope you have found reasons to have joy and pleasure today. And I hope you continue to do well in the future. I will talk to you guys on Wednesday. at 7 p.m. Eastern. In the interim, if you're looking for me, you can just find me on the Patreon, find me on Discord, and find me on Twitter. And I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Thanks for being here. Okay. At 7 p.m. Eastern. In the interim, if you're looking for me, you can just find me on the Patreon, find me on Discord, and find me on Twitter. And I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Thanks for being here.